Hey guys, welcome back to another video for Phantasy Star Online Blueburst, and this will also relate to the GameCube and Xbox versions as well, and to a lesser extent the earlier versions. What I want to talk about today is something that comes up a little bit when people first get into the game and they're first getting to the part of the game where you're starting to look for rare gear, and that is, how do I know what to run for? How do I know what quests to do? Basically, as you'll know with PSO, a lot of it revolves around farming enemies for specific rare drops, and because of that it can be quite confusing as a new player to come into that and not really have any indication of what quests are good for it, what quests are bad for it. So what I'm going to do today is just show you how I do it basically, and I'm going to show you a couple of hunts that I do and how I get the information so I know I'm running the right quest for it. So the first thing I do typically is I play on the Affinia server for Blueburst, and Affinia has a really useful wiki page that I would thoroughly recommend everyone check out if you are playing on Affinia, because it has all the information about pretty much everything in the game. I reference it myself quite a lot as well, but crucially it has a breakdown of, for each enemy in the game, it has a breakdown of what the best quests are to hunt them in. So as an example, as a Skyly player in episode 2, one of the big items that you're going to typically go for is the CLJ sword, which is a very rare drop from one specific enemy in the game, which is Gigu. Now, Gigu is kind of a mini-boss style enemy, so it doesn't really appear that often in a lot of quests. So because of that, you want a quest that has a good coverage of Gigus, but you also want a quest that doesn't require you to, spend half an hour in tower to get to any of them. You want basically a way of You're essentially trying to simplify the farming and make it so that you are spending as little time as possible not killing the enemy that you need to kill. So you basically want a quest that you can do quickly, farm a few, and then repeat. There are some items in the game where you'll do full quest runs because they might be worth it, but there is also a lot of items in the game where you'll do what are called reset runs, which is where you go so far into the quest and then abandon out of the quest and rerun it again. And for CLJ Sword, that is definitely one of the best ways to do it. So if you look on the Affinia wiki, you can see that there is a page for Gigu. So if you open the Gigu page on Affinia, obviously if you are hunting a drop that drops from different enemies, it would be a case of just looking at the different enemies. Maybe just look at the different drops on the actual drop page first. What you could do is, if you're looking for a specific item, you could load the page on the wiki for that item, and that will tell you all the different drops that are possible in the game. Then just have a scan through those, see which ones seem like they have decent or better drop rates, see which ones might be a bit farmable. You can normally tell, if you've got something that's a 1 in 300,000 drop, then it's probably not something you're going to hunt. There will be other drops that are much more farmable usually. So just have a look, see what you think might be some of the better drops, and then from that you can figure out which enemies are those drops, load the enemy page, and then try and figure out what the best quests are to hunt that enemy. Now, for CLJ Sword, it is a very easy one in terms of choosing what enemy, because, as I mentioned, it only drops from one enemy, which is Gigu. Now, when you load the Gigu page on the wiki, there are a few options for hunting this. So, the first one it mentions is, quite often I find is typically the best option. So, the first quest that it mentions for hunting Gigus is a quest called Phantasmal World 4, and it says clear 2F, so clear the second floor, or 5 Gigus. So let's try that now and see how efficient that is. So we've got Phantasmal World 4 here. Obviously, if you are just starting out, make sure you're running these on the right section ID. So this is Phantasmal World 4, and it says we need to clear 2 floors. Now, I am very familiar with this quest because I've probably ran this thousands of times by now. So it's actually quite an easy hunt to do. It's a very hard drop rate to get the CLJ, obviously, but the actual hunt itself is actually really easy. Mainly because you can actually get a lot of enemies stuck as well, if you do it right. For some reason, the gibbles tend to get stuck if you stand on the yellow bits. Let's see if we can do it. Nah, that one wouldn't do it there. So in these enemies, you just stand near them and they'll typically never spit at you. And then there's one more Gibbles. Normally standing here makes it glitch. We'll never know because it died so fast because I critted out on pretty much every hit. So we've got the second floor, and this is where the Gigius are. So straight away we've got a couple here. And these are what drop your CLJ sword. Typically don't shoot them if they've got the barrier up. I'm just doing it because I want to get the damage in.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine. You're not really fine, but you just can't get into it.
I mean, it would have been funny if it had dropped a CLJ sword on this, but I'm very familiar with those. Yeah, so this floor basically is just 5 Gigius and nothing else. I will reluctantly pick this fort and drop up. They do kind of spam the confuse a bit, but there we go. That was kind of a messy run, but you can see that's pretty quick. That is an entire CLJ sword run. So then after this, you would just reset and run this over and over again. Now, to do this, to expedite it, what you can do is if you go into your chat menu and go to shortcut, this only works on Affinia, but if you set a shortcut to be /lobby, you can very quickly go back to the lobby. You can type it as well if you want to, but it's easier to just set it to a shortcut. And then if I do Shift and F2, it will automatically send me back to the lobby, and then I would just reload that quest again. I'm still kind of salty that we got another fort on drop, but that is to be expected if you're hunting CLJ sword. I think that's probably about my 20th fort on drop. So that is CLJ sword. So again, all we did is we just looked at the Affinia wiki. We looked up the drop for CLJ sword, which is from Gigu. We then looked at the Gigu page on the Affinia wiki to see where the best concentration of Gigus is. Now, are there quests with more Gigus? Yes, there are. You know, even if you do a full Phantasmal World 4 run, there are quests with more Gigus, such as Twilight Sanctuary. But Twilight Sanctuary is an extremely difficult quest that you're probably not going to solo. And also the Gigus take a little bit more getting to. The advantage of running Phantasmal World 4 for the CLJ sword is that you can get those 5 Gigus very quickly. You know, realistically, that was a couple of minutes at most. And then you would just recycle that over and over again. It is an extremely boring hunt because you are just recycling that same 2 rooms over and over again. But it is probably the most efficient way of running for CLJ sword. If you don't want to do that, there are other options. So it also mentions things like running the first spawn of Night of Coral Advent. Or if you want to stick to the SEGA quests, you can also run Phantasmal World 1. You can either run up to the last room, which has 5 Gigus, or you can do the entire of Seaside, which will give you 12. Obviously, it's a longer run though, so if you don't want to do resets, you can do it that way. You're still getting a decent amount of Gigus, but you would get more in a shorter space of time by spamming the Phantasmal World 4 2-floor resets. So that is how I typically hunt CLJ sword. So with that, let's move on to another item. And let's choose something that's got a drop from a lot of different enemies. So next one we'll move on to is another rare item, which is Lavis Cannon. So Lavis Cannon, again, is one of these kind of endgame rares that you guys spend a lot of time hunting typically. But the advantage with Lavis is that it does have a drop on every single section ID. Now, again, what I would do first is open the Lavis Cannon page on the wiki. And what you can see is there is an enemy drop table. And like I said, there is a drop for every section ID. As you look through these, you'll realise that some of them are much better IDs than others. So if we just scan down them, we have Viridia Ep1 Grand Sorcerers. I typically wouldn't bother with that because Grand Sorcerers don't tend to be that numerous. We have Greenhill Morphos. Again, I probably wouldn't bother with that drop. We have Skylight Deldes in Ruins. That drop it's doable. It wouldn't be one of my first choices, but Deldes are at least farmable in a quest called Endless Nightmare 4, and probably some other quests as well. We have Blue Full Sinnoh Reds, but really the first one that I would probably consider would be Purple Num Tolors, because Forest is a very easy area. There are quests with tons of Tolors, so for example things like, I believe one of the mop-up quests, it might mop up one, has a decent amount, and also things like Lost Heat Sword have quite a lot of Tolors. So that is quite farmable. We then have Pinkle Blue Slimes, which is a terrible rate. But then we have the one I'm going to show you now, which is Regiria Red Slimes. Now, obviously, with this being from a rare enemy, it has a much better drop rate, but the disadvantage is you need to get the rare enemy to appear. Because of that, this hunt is probably best done during Rare Monster Week. Obviously, there's no harm in doing it outside of that as well, but you are going to have a harder time getting that red slime to appear. Another advantage is if you do it during Rare Drop Week, at least then if the slime does appear, it's got a bit of a better rate of dropping Lavis. So I'd say probably Rare Drop Week and Rare Enemy Week are probably the 2 weeks that you want to prioritise this hunt. Neither of which are this week at that I'm recording. So let's go with that drop. There is a couple that I would recommend for Lavis, so I'd probably go with either Purple Tolors, or you could go with Regiria Red Slimes. Those to me are probably the 2 best ones. I mean, technically you could do Yellow Bows or White Old Gibbles, but that's like the same rate as Seal J Sword. I would honestly probably just go with the Red Slime or the Purple Tolors. They just seem a lot more farmable. Skylight LD isn't too bad as well, but the Skylight LD drop is essentially a slightly worse version of the Purple drop because you're in a slightly harder area. And the Purple Tolors are just a bit more farmable. But for this, I'll show you the Regiria drop. Now, when you load the wiki page on Affinia for Red Slimes, it will actually show you the page for the Blue Slimes, because obviously you're going to be hunting the same quests, because you're just wanting the chance of a Puffuli slime to be a Purely slime instead. So because of that, you're basically looking for a quest that has a lot of the regular slimes that have a chance of turning into the red slimes. So the first one I recommend is Christmas Fiasco, which is the event quest during Christmas. Obviously, we can disregard that because outside of the Christmas event, you're not going to be running that. But if the Christmas event is on, that would be your first choice. Next up, you can do things like Silent Afterimage 2 for 16 slimes, or you can do Maximum Attack. Another option for doing this is you can also run Towards the Future. So Towards the Future is actually a really fast one, and that's probably more akin to your Seal J Sword hunt, where it's more of a reset hunt. So typically for the TTF option, you want to go to VR and Towards the Future. For reference, this isn't how I normally hunt Lavis. So just a tip, if you're doing this with Regiria, it's probably worth killing the battles at the beginning, because they do drop Disco Braveman, and Disco Braveman with high hit can be really useful. So just kill these while I wait for the enemy to spawn, which it now has. And then we can ignore the rest of the spawns. Obviously, if you want to do the full forest part, you can, because the rare Hill Delta has a chance of dropping a Ratista on Regiria, which is decent. But for me, for now, I'm just going to run in the dragon. So we do the dragon fight. For the dragon, typically, I would just spam Gizonda. Gizonda is really interesting on the dragon because it looks like it's not doing much damage, but it actually hits more or less every part of it, so it actually really chunks the dragon's health down fast. We did miss one Gizonda there, so it might get a chance to dig underground, possibly. Or not. So we kill the dragon. Now once you kill the dragon, just run to caves. Now there is a hidden wall here. This will basically spawn a Vulma that allows you to exit the first room. But we do actually want to kill one of the other enemies. So we'll quickly kill the Vulma to open the door, but obviously we want to split this slime. Because if we split slimes, there is a chance of red slimes. For anyone who doesn't know, if you do split a slime, it does have a chance of spawning into a red slime. I think that's it. I think, yeah, we're going to get one. And then typically what I do with the force is just spam Gifoy. And usually what will happen is as they try respawning up, it'll just kill them instantly. So once we've done that, we can ignore the rest of this room. We can check the lilies for a rare one, which there isn't. So once you kill that lily, you can just run out actually, but sometimes it's easy to just kill these to get past them. That also spawns the other lily, so once they're spawned, you can check them for the rare one. Which there isn't. And in here, again, it's mainly the lily you want to kill. You can ignore the rest. Normally you'd wait for another Vulma to spawn, but when you're hunting slimes, you don't need to. This is the room that you want for slime hunting for TTF. So you get 4 slimes in here. Just get them near each other. And just start spamming ice techs. You can also use third attack of a combo. Or occasionally fire traps will split them, but there is a risk of actually killing them instantly with damage traps as well. So you'd say, unfortunately, no red slime, but you can see we get a lot of slimes out of doing this. So we'll just kill them because it's free experience and chance of guard wave. And once they're dead, that is where you would reset the run. So pretty easy one to hunt. It's typically not the quest I do for hunting slimes. So the one I do, if I go back to lobby, I actually tend to run maximum attack instead. So maximum attack is actually a really useful quest for a couple of different things. So if you're hunting red slimes, you probably want to run maximum attack full stage 1A. Alternatively, if you're purple num and wanting to run for psycho ones, you can run 1B. So if we do 1A first. Again, for this, I would typically do this during Rare Drop Week or during Rare Monster Week. This is probably not the week to be doing it, honestly. Yeah, I would also, if you're doing this, I would really recommend using a Force because Force just absolutely blows through this. I'm not sure how that 1 mil quick at the back survived, but okay. So you can see we've got 2 slimes straight away, so you could even reset this room if you wanted to. Oh, I've actually got one. Yeah, so this is the guy we want. So nice of it to show up. Let's get some more disappointment for a video. And we got a level as well, cool. I think we're now pretty much halfway to 200 as well. You know, the downside of running this with a Force is that this guy is kind of annoying to kill with a Force. I would probably use a Demon's Weapon for this, honestly. Let's try that. There we go. Now, unfortunately, we did split it, but we took most of his health off it at least. So, unfortunately, no Lavis. Surprising no one. So, you could theoretically just reset that room if you wanted to. It is two very quick slimes. But honestly, this quest in general is quite good for them. This room, obviously very good for lilies. Again, the other reason that Force is so good for this is because you can take out the lilies very easily. Again, we've got more slimes. So you can see it's generally just a very, very good way of farming them. I'm not going to go for the whole quest. You basically just want to run the caves part of this. And there is slimes more or less through the entirety of it. It is very, very profitable for doing slime runs. I mean, honestly, it's good for most things in caves. Yeah, I guess what you've seen from this video though so far is the duality of rares in PSO. You will experience a lot of disappointment as well. Yeah, we'll do another room or two. Yeah, typically this is the quest that I do run if I'm hunting red slimes. You know, unless it's during the Christmas event, obviously, in which case I'd run the Christmas event. Do need to be a little bit careful here because the lilies at the door. If you target it right, you can actually tag them before you can kill them. So you have another slime here. Don't worry about hitting the slimes once or twice. As long as you don't kill them, you can still split them. Yeah, honestly, I really like this quest for hunting pretty much anything in caves. Yeah, I had a feeling that dragon was going to hit me. Oh, we got a red slicer. Probably one of the most useless weapons in the game. Honestly, it's just really not good. Well, maybe calling it one of the most useless is a bit of an exaggeration, but yeah, there are much better slicers. I mean, just use a Disco Braveman, honestly. But yeah, you get the idea anyway. So this quest generally is just very, very good for hunting most caves enemies. There are a couple of rooms right near the end of caves as well that are full of slimes. There's one in particular that has a 4 slime spawn, so you can get a lot of slimes from that as well. So again, it depends how you want to do it. Do you want to do quick resets, in which case you probably just do the TTF resets. If you want to do a longer run, but it's still good for slimes, this is maybe a good way of doing it. For the record, I found most of my rare slimes through doing this quest rather than TTF, but TTF is still useful for doing it. And it's obviously decent experience as well because you're doing that quick boss rush. So yeah, so that is Lavis. Another way of hunting it again would be through Purple Numb by running something like Lost Heat Sword. So basically what I'm saying is you want to look at the different drops that are available for what you're wanting to find. Look at the different enemies that drop it, and obviously the drop rates as well. And try and figure out what is a farmable drop and what is actually a reasonable one, because there are some drops in the game that are just totally unreasonable. Example of that is if you look at the Psycho 1 drops. I mean, all the Psycho 1 drops are unreasonable, but if you look at the Viridia Psycho 1 drop, it's something like 1 in 130,000 from a Delbiter. But then Blueful has exactly the same Delbiter drop at a much better drop rate, so obviously you're not going to do the Viridia drop because the Blueful one is just objectively better. So look through the drops, see what you think the most farmable drops are, and then look up that enemy in the wiki, see what quest that enemy appears a lot in, As you can probably tell, this quest is quite good for running things with Crimson Assassins. You know, bear in mind we've got about 3 or 4 in the room at the minute. So, yeah, look at what quests the enemies appear in. You essentially want quests that have a high concentration of the enemies that you want in as short a time as possible to maximize your farming. Now, yes, it can get very dull spamming the same thing over and over again. So if you do start to find it a bit annoying to do this, by all means mix it up and do a different quest or hunt something else. That's the magic of PSO, is that you can just switch up and go and hunt something else or level a new character if you want to. Take some time away from that hunt, and then go back to it when you feel like it. So I hope that's been relatively useful. I would generally just say, look up the drops. Try and figure out what you think is the most farmable. You'll get an idea of what enemies appear quite often anyway. So, you know, if you see a drop that drops from something like a Bartle, or, you know, which is an Ultimate Boomer, you know that they appear quite frequently in quests, whereas something like a Gibbles or a Gigu is a mini-boss that won't appear that often. So you kind of need to temper your expectations of how many are going to appear in a quest. Also, don't just jump to the quest that's got the most of that enemy, because it might be a quest that is like totally unsoloable. Something like Twilight Sanctuary, for example, is going to really cause you a lot of problems trying to solo. So in that instance, maybe look at other quests that are soloable, so things like the Phantasmal World 4 resets. Or, you know, if you've got friends with you, then you could always do a Twilight run if you wanted to. So yeah, I hope that's given you a few things to think about anyway. If you do have any questions about rare drop hunting, or how to figure out what the best way of doing it is, or if you're trying to find something yourself and you're not sure on the best methods, just leave a comment below and I'll try and answer where I can. I am more familiar with certain section IDs than others, but I will try and help out at trying to point you towards the best possible drops if I can. But yeah, I would say in the first instance, just use the Affinia Wiki and try and figure it out from there. It is a really useful resource and is one that I still use quite regularly. So again, massive thank you to Affinia for providing all that information on the wiki, because it is very useful. Yeah, we'll end that on there for today. If you have enjoyed the video, please consider either liking, subscribing, or joining as a member on YouTube. You can also follow us up on Twitch. I have X and Bluesky, which are both SectionSkyly, and we also have a Discord channel you can join as well, so feel free to join that as well. Yeah, hope to see you in the next video, and whatever you're doing, have a good week.